welcome to the Art of Decluttering podcast. I'm your host, Amy Revell. Today, I want to discuss an issue that I have personally. And then once I established what that issue was, I realized that all of you probably have the same issue. So let's talk about it. And the issue is, what do you do when you feel like you're forever doing the same thing in your house? So, or even in your life, let's just expand it because, you know, what you do in your house, you do in your life, it all just kind of blurs in together sometimes. And today I just want to jump straight into talking about what do you do when you do something more than twice a day? Now, the reason I thought about this is that I just have recently had a sinus infection and I had to take antibiotics 3 times a day. And then I got a little rash on my torso and I have to put on this like little cream 3 times a day. And I mean, I have ADHD and a lot of you do, but not all of you do. And I imagine that all of us struggle to do anything 3 times a day. When the doctor gives me antibiotics that are 3 times a day, I almost just feel like shaking him and saying, I'm going to forget at least one of those doses. Please, is there something I can take once a day or even twice a day? But 3 times a day is a lot. It's a big mental load for something that is not part of my everyday routine. I mean, I don't even eat 3 times a day. I don't do anything 3 times a day. And when you tell me I have to do something that regularly, I'm going to forget. I'm going to put it off. I'm going to have one at 9 o'clock, one at 11 o'clock, and one at 11 p.m. And I don't know if that's what I'm meant to do. It's hard. And so then as I was thinking about it, not just from a medical perspective, but a lot of clients say, you know, some of the things they struggle with is I'm always clearing the kitchen bench. I'm forever stacking the dishwasher. I'm forever cleaning up my kids' toys. I'm forever picking up clothes off the floor. And I think sometimes when we say forever, it's not that we're doing it 15 times a day. It's actually that we have to intentionally do it multiple times a day, maybe 3 times a day, as the episode is titled. And that really does add a lot of mental load and a lot of burden and a lot of pressure to remember. And really, we can't have reminders in our phone for everything. Like I have reminders in my phone for lots of things because I just don't remember things. But I'm not gonna put a reminder in my phone 3 times a day that's like, go into the kids' bathroom and check that they haven't left clothes on the floor, go and tidy up the toys, clear the kitchen bench. But what I do find is that when I wander around the house, when I'm doing things, I am doing some things multiple times a day. And that feels overwhelming. It feels like I'm forever doing those things because the mental load, there's not enough time between that I kind of get a break. And there's not enough habit that it doesn't need doing. I was thinking about it and thought, how do I manage it? And what are some tips and tricks around managing things that you feel like you have to do 3 times a day? How do we make it so that it's simple and you either don't have to do it 3 times a day, there's habit stacking, or what's the simpler version? Like how do we simplify this? Like my book is called Simply Organized, and it's not because it was just a fun little title, but the simply is really important to me. The simply is about making things efficient and effective. It's about streamlining. It's about not complicating that which doesn't need to be complicated. In the last couple of months, I've really been focusing on simplifying the art of decluttering. I have streamlined and automated so many things that were otherwise taking hours in a week. And it makes me so happy. It makes me so happy when I think, oh, I've just reclaimed time or I've reclaimed headspace. And there is ways that you can do this in your home, in your life. And so I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to chat about it while it's so fresh for me. Now, when you have to do something 3 times a day, you can, the first question is, can I completely stop doing this? Let's say you're doing something 3 times a day. So if I was answering the same type of email 3 times a day, the smart thing is I create an automated response, or I have a pro forma response, a templated response, and I use that to save time and to save headspace. And that's what we do in the business world. If you're doing the same thing over and over, how do you automate it? How do you make it quicker and efficient and streamlined? So how do we do that in the home? How can you automate something? And like, unless you have a robot, which you probably don't have, the way that you automate something is you can break it down and have it as a habit rather than a task. So I want to talk about habit versus task. And also, what's the simpler version? So, for instance, with the antibiotics, I could say to my doctor, is there one that I only have to take twice a day? And he might say, oh, yeah, absolutely. I go, great, give me that one. Is there a simpler version of the kids' bathroom? Is it actually that you say to the kids, instead of me feeling like I'm forever like picking up your dirty clothes, you might have preschoolers who change their clothes a lot. You go, actually, before you go to bed each night, child, your job is to find all of the dirty clothes and put them in the basket. So then you're simplifying it. What's the simpler version? So let's talk about how to simplify using habit versus task. Let's go for a quick break, and I'm going to come back and unpack that a little bit with you. A task is something that is a one-off occasion where you have a specific goal and you go out and you achieve that goal, and it's a task. So the task might be doing the dishes, right? So that's a task. Whereas a habit would be each time I have a dirty dish, I put it straight into the dishwasher. So when I have a glass of Diet Coke and the glass is empty, if I'm finished, I can either put it on the bench and it starts to create a task, right? Because then someone else puts a plate, someone else puts a spoon, someone else puts a bowl, and you're creating a task of stacking the dishwasher versus a habit of whenever I have a dirty dish, I put it straight in the dishwasher. When you create a habit, you don't have to think as much about it. Think about brushing your teeth. You probably don't think of that as a task. That's just what you do, right? So what you do versus something that you have to plan and execute and have intentionality around. And so when it comes to habits versus task in your home, let's think about how we can break that down with, say, the kitchen bench that you might find after you kind of have the morning breakfast rush and maybe kids are going off to school or someone's going off to work, and you're like, look at the kitchen bench and think, oh, I better clear the bench. And then it happens again after school and happens again before bedtime. So you're like, 3 times a day I have to clear this bench. How is it always messy? So that's the task. What if the habit side of it was, I'm actually going to find homes for the things that always end up on the bench? Or every time I go to just chuck something on the bench because I know that I'll deal with it later, I know that I'm creating a task. What about if the habit is, oh, I'm not going to pop it there, I'm going to put it straight away? And so by creating these really healthy habits, you're reducing the task and the mental load for you. Because just popping something away quickly or going, oh, that doesn't belong there, it literally just belongs in the cupboard next to it. The habit of putting things away reduces the task. So if you think about it with kids playing, if you get into the habit of each time they change activity, which sometimes can be every 10 minutes if you've got a toddler, the habit is we'll spend 15 seconds or a minute just quickly packing up what you've played with before we move on to the next thing. So you get your child involved and it just becomes a habit versus at the end of the morning when they go down for their nap, or at the end of the afternoon, or at nighttime when they go down, you got 3 times a day, you're like, ugh, I'm just forever tidying up the playroom. You've created a habit instead of a task, because all you have then is the last little habit to execute. Oh, I've just got to help my child tidy up the last puzzle before bed. And then you don't have any more to do. And I think that, these people that you look at and we think, oh my gosh, they're so organized. Why does their house, even when I pop in on a Saturday afternoon or a Monday morning or a Tuesday night, it's always the same. It's not because they're always on top of their tasks. I really do believe it's because they've created great habits that remove these tasks that are so tricky. I think the challenge with tasks, at least for my brain, is there's often lots of steps involved and lots of opportunity for distraction. If you jump into my Facebook community, a post that you'll see someone post about once a month is of a lady wearing like this tiara and funny shaped sunglasses and playing with a Game Boy. And it's this idea of like, I started a task. I started the decluttering and then I got distracted with all the things. And that happens on the bench. You know, like you look at it and you're like, well, there's a school notice, there's someone's dirty lunchbox, there's a pair of earbuds, there's a charger, there's a gift card. And you look at it and you think, okay, like there's all these things, but you go and take the charger back to put it away. And then when you go there, you realize that there's chargers that you don't need. And so you might do a declutter and then that takes you on to a different space, but the bench never gets done because the task has so many steps in it. Whereas a habit is just one little thing, one tiny thing that you can do to reduce you having to face a big task that is confusing and has so many steps and you can just get distracted with. I think the bench, the toys, washing is another area that it can be habit versus task. What I really have found in the last couple of weeks, we've had a really kind of busy, everybody moving back into the school year and tutoring has started and basketball has started and after school activities have started and Pilates has gone back and there's all the things, is that we've gotten out of the habit for us of the flow of our washing. So usually it's like washing done, washing hung out, and then when it's brought in, Elijah sorts it into baskets. So each person has their own basket and then we just put it straight away and then the basket goes back in the laundry. Because we've been busy, there's been multiple times when that basket will sit in our room or the kids' room and we end up going through it to pull out clothes. And then it's like this big task because then the second basket comes and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so many steps. And now there's towels in there and tea towels that have got to go back to the kitchen and it becomes overwhelming. Whereas if the habit is, oh, my clothes are there and I put them straight away, it does reduce kind of that burden of, oh, I've got to remember to do that. I've got to go back to that multiple times in a day. And so that habit is so important for reducing the mental load and for helping you just to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. This really is just the tip of the iceberg around habits and tasks, but I would love you to jump over into my Facebook community and engage. Tell me what's that difference for you? How does it look for you? How does it work for you? What are the tricky bits? How has this, changed the way you think about your dishes or your bench or your dirty clothes or toys or whatever it is? I hope this has been helpful today. Thank you again to all of you who have been leaving reviews. When you're next in your podcast app, particularly if you're on Apple Podcasts, have a look at some of the reviews. We've had, I think, like 56 in the last month. So I really appreciate you just leaving that 5-star review. If you've got time, leaving a written review is awesome. Have an amazing week. I hope this has been a helpful episode. I'm going to remember to go and put that cream on 3 times a day. And I will see you next week. Enjoy the freedom. I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land this podcast is recorded on. I would also like to pay respects to their elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love you to rate and review the show on your podcast app. That will help others to find the Art of Decluttering podcast as well. If you'd like any more information, you can visit theartofdecluttering.com.au. And I would love to see you in my Facebook group. Just search the Art of Decluttering community on Facebook and join today. I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day and enjoy the freedom.